Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Solian, and we're going to be looking at some basic techniques for Jacking House, and more specifically, look at triplet swing hi-hats and closed hats. So, in advance, sorry for the slightly bad audio quality of my microphone. I'm actually chilling at a friend's place in Barcelona right now, and I don't have my equipment with me, so the audio isn't gonna be amazing, but I hope it's okay to get my points across. Um, yeah, let's jump right in. So I'm gonna be using a drum a drum rack which you can download for free. I talked about this in a video before, but I'm going to put the link in the description again. This is basically a Roland drum machine that's sampled. It's called the TR-505. And I'm basically using it exactly the way it is, but I switched the kick drum. And yeah, the kick drum is actually one of my own kick drums, which I'm gonna give a giveaway for free in the coming days in the kick sample pack. So if you wanna make sure to grab those kick drums and a few other ones, make sure to subscribe and stick around in my channel because I'm always gonna give some stuff away here and there, samples and presets and this kind of stuff. So anyway, let's jump right in. I think I didn't even preview this stuff, so let me just play this loop real quick that I was working on. So very basic loop at this point, obviously, and very dry, so there's no processing on it whatsoever because we're just going to be focusing mainly on this hi-hat sound over here. And I'm just going to start a new clip real quick in order to just explain what I did. So very basic, obviously, Jackin House is like four to the floor kind of stuff, so you can just put in four kick drums and a clap on every second beat. Oh, this is still the first one, so actually let me bring down the volume a bit as well, so maybe that's a bit more comfortable. So yeah, I guess all of you know that. And then I just put in the open hi-hats, which is this sound um, on, yeah, every offbeat in a way. So you kind of have, yeah, each beat until you get the next kick, and then in the middle between those you have the open hi-hat. So that's where we're at right now. And then in Jackin House, many times you use very like skippy and cool closed hi-hats. So an open hi-hat is like a kind of a longer hi-hat. Like if you think about it on a drum kit, a hi-hat is like this round metal plate that you hit on. And open kind of means that you just hit on it and it freely like spreads its sound in a way and starts keeps resonating for a longer time. And then the closed one, I guess you can put your hands on it and hit on it, or you can have these ones that you do with your foot that just like bounce on top of each other, I think. But I'm not a drummer myself, but I just thought maybe a little background info might be interesting. So closed head sounds like this in drum machines, often pretty classic sound. And my approach to this is obviously depending on what of kind of sound I want to create, but oftentimes I just try to, yeah, kind of spread them across the whole place, like all over the place, and then take some away to create some rhythms, because rhythm is more about the breaks and the pauses in between sounds than actually about where you put the sounds. I think that's a pretty interesting thing to know. And in general, all these quarter notes are fair game. So if this is one beat or one note, you have it divided down into like four sub areas, which you call quarter notes, and then you can place them anywhere in there. But yeah, all of this was pretty basic until this point. But something that I really like to do is, instead of using Ableton's Groove Pool, um, create a triplet grid, which you can also do by Command 3 on Apple. And all of a sudden, instead of having like quarter notes, you get triplets. And what you can use this for is a triplet swing, which is a very jazzy sound. And for Jackin House, you use a lot of like jazzy elements and this kind of stuff. So what I like about the triplet grid is also that you can quantize your notes to triplets. So you don't always have to work with the swing stuff when you work with other clips and this kind of stuff. So it's kind of, yeah. a cool thing. So let's just throw in some notes and see what happens. So usually it's cool to start on the one and then maybe even another one and another one here. Then leave this guy, give this guy a bit of space and put a one in the end, for example. And then maybe we can just duplicate that and now have this rhythm. So automatically this sounds pretty cool in Skippy because yeah, we use this triplet swing because now it's swung. If you look or if you go back to the normal grid now and turn off the triplet grid, you can see that these notes are not actually hitting on the straight quarter note, but are hitting much later, which is called swing, which gives it like this lazy feeling, gives it like this special rhythmic element to it. Yeah. And I have to say that a triplet swing is a pretty heavy swing. So many times you might use some swing also for bass lines and stuff, and just be like around here or something like that, and not necessarily have this very heavy swing. But for these hi-hats, it usually works quite well. And something you can consider is that if you later on add more drum elements which you also swing, is that you don't necessarily have to keep the swing of the triplet grid. So if you add some snares, for example, or some claps, some extra claps, then you don't necessarily have to swing them the same way. And let me go over that maybe real quick. Wasn't part of the initial loop, but maybe a bit interesting. So let's say something like that. You know, I didn't record this now, but so basically we're here and it sounded decent without any swing at all. And in this case, you can decide, okay, does it sound okay with the closed hi-hat and the clap on this beat, or should I just take out the closed hi-hat in order for it to sound a bit better and maybe do the same thing here in the end. Okay, this one didn't sound that nice, but here we go. Okay, maybe something like that. So now these claps sound okay to me, but they don't have any swing, and then you can decide if you want to add a bit more. But if we chose to use a triplet swing at this point, for the claps, it might sound a bit awkward. So to me, this doesn't sound as nice as not having this swing. Okay, so basically that, just that you don't have to use this triplet grid for everything, but it works nice with these hi-hats. So let's get rid of the extra claps for a second and do something more. So now this is very static, obviously, because these closed hi-hats all have the same exact velocity. One last extra step that you can do is change up the velocities of of the different hi-hat hits. And that's also something that you have to kind of develop your own sound and kind of decide which ones you like to accent more and which ones less. And it's something, yeah, that's, I mean, there are so many different options and variations you can do that it doesn't make sense to really come up with rules, you know, like just come up with ideas and do stuff instead of trying to approach it very systematically. So we can just mess around a bit. What I always realized is that you can do it, put an accent on a beat or on an off beat, and just decide to do whatever you feel like. Like we can say we start out with a high velocity, then drop down and move our way back up. That can give like this like kind of wavy effect in a way. So you can try to make these guys interact, make the velocity go up and down, or just come up with something that has more of a repeating pattern. Let's say in this case these two bars are similar. And yeah, something I should mention as well is that rhythmic accents can come from higher velocities as well as lower velocity because it's kind of about the contrast always. So if you have steady high velocities and then drop it down, you will feel like there's something changing, so it's accenting it. Because for a long time I thought an accent only comes from the focus on the rhythm, on like adding more velocity, giving the ear something that it can hear, while many times the accent actually also comes from the silence and from the break, and the groove really depends on that as well. So that's something really important to keep in mind when coming up with your stuff. Because back in the days, I was like, well, I want another accent here, I want another accent there, and would end up with a lot of different percussion sounds and hi-hats and stuff all over the place. And it just wouldn't groove anymore because there's just too much going on, which is also likely to happen when you're working on beats for too long, because then all these other elements don't sound as new and fresh anymore, and you get used to them. And then you try to create contrast by adding more elements. So it's always good to take a break and have some fresh ears, because you tend to, or at least I tend to, just add more stuff in order to add variation, because the other stuff, yeah, just sounds too boring after a while, and it's really just you fooling yourself into needing more contrast, because it's all about contrast and music and attention and this kind of stuff. So that's also something worth to keep in mind. Anyway, so to finish things up so it doesn't get too long, let me just get rid of these hi-hats real quick, and then maybe just duplicate this pattern, and then we are working with this at this point. Yeah, so that's some basic Jackin House techniques. Later on, I'm going to be focusing on snares and stuff like this, and I'm going to make beat tutorials here and there. So if you like them and if you feel like you learned something, um, feel free to subscribe and stick around. So I'm still learning all of this stuff myself, and I'm always presenting it from my perspective as a beginner, kind of. And so the longer you stick around on my channel, the more advanced things will hopefully get, because I'm also learning more new stuff, and I'm going to share that. So we're starting out a bit basic and over time getting more advanced. That's kind of the idea of my channel. So thanks for watching. I'm glad to have you around, and I hope to see you soon. Peace.